Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's episode, entitled Hot Summer Noir 4. The Grindhouse Institute team is back at it again, celebrating the sweltering, humid season with a fresh batch of summer crime flicks. This heat just makes it so hard to think straight. Pretty soon you'll start getting ideas. So take one more shot of tequila, buy yourself a new tie, and pick up that dame thumbing a ride as we sweat our way through some summer film noir. A down-on-his-luck pianist attempts a cross-country hitchhiking trip to reconnect with his sweetheart. His road trip turns off the main highway when he encounters some accidental deaths, stolen identification, and one hell of a femme fatale. Tom Neal and Ann Savage star in Edgar G. Ulmer's Detour from 1945. Career pickpocket Skip McCoy lifts an easy score on a train, only to find out that his mark was a mule for the commies. Now, carrying the government's secret MacGuffin, he'll need to fend off the cops, the feds, and the Reds. Richard Widmark, Gene Peters, and the incredible Thelma Ritter star in Samuel Fuller's 1953 film, Hiccup on South Street. Drifting along with nothing to his name but a measly $5, Michael Williams comes to Red Rock in desperate need of a job. He stumbles into a way to make some quick money that requires a little bit of murder. Can he go through with it? Can he get away with it? And can he make it out of Red Rock? Nicolas Cage, Lara Flynn Boyle, J.T. Walsh, and Dennis Hopper find out in John Dahl's Red Rock West from 1993. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Why did Wayne try to...
Get rid of me?
Yeah.
It's all about money. My parents died several years ago in an accident, and I received a fairly large insurance settlement. Wayne's just gotten used to spending it. He probably figures if he divorced me, he'd end up with nothing. If I'm 6 feet under the ground with a bullet in my head, he gets to keep everything.
That's kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah, well, that's my husband.
I watched a Mexican noir this morning.
Oh,
Victims of Sin. Very good movie.
Where did you find it? Victims of Sin.
That's on Criterion right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really, really good.
Ooh, is that next? Mexican noir?
Oh, that could be good.
Is it going up on the page?
Probably, yeah. It's definitely. Yeah, I'll save it for that. It's really good. Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should do. Go to Mexico. Ever been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it like?
Hot.
Sounds perfect.
Want anything else?
No. Hey, you. Me? Yeah, you. Where you coming from? West. Yeah, sure, I know, but where, L.A.? Maybe. Got a cousin out in L.A. You don't say. Yeah, he's been out... You're not much of a talker, are you? My mother taught me never to speak to strangers. Oh, a wise guy. So what? Okay, don't get sore. Just trying to be sociable, that's all.
Now, can't you see how important this is? We just want your cooperation, and the charges against you will be dropped.
Well, you boys are talking in the wrong corner. I'm just a guy keeping my hands in my own pockets.
If you refuse to cooperate, you'll be as guilty as the traitors that gave Stalin the Aba.
Are you waving the flag at me?
Do you know what treason means?
Who cares?
Answer the man!
Is there a law now I gotta listen to lectures?
All right, welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me, as always, is Lyle from Dallas. Hello, and how are you?
Which Lyle? Yeah, I'm the guy from Texas. Yeah. I'm the one you
Jeremy
want.
Floyd, hello.
Yeah. I'll take any job. Whatever you want to do.
It's worth a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll use that gun there. I mean, whatever you want me to do with it.
I'd say of the two of us, you're definitely the Dennis Hopper to my Peter Fonda, Jeremy.
Okay. Is that a mustache joke or is that?
I guess I'm J.T. Walsh.
Yeah.
For those people that don't know what we look like, Jeremy has a mustache. Well, yes, we have a very special show today. We are continuing our Hot Summer Noir 4 here. This is our episode 4, A New Hope, of our Summer Noir series, and with us is a returning very special guest. Jeremy, if you could please do the introduction.
Yeah, well, this is our 4th year in a row of bringing us the hottest and the steamiest of all film noirs. It's an annual tradition, and pretty much every 3rd episode of this show, a tradition to bring back everyone's favorite, Alex Vlahov. He's here.
Dude, hey, fellas. Good to be back.
Welcome back.
Very, very happy to be doing these. I had a broken arm, and I got a text that said, hey, what if we do another trio of films? And literally the first 3 that you suggested were these 3. And I was like, these are great films.
Yeah.
No notes. Just,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah. Loved
Awesome.
it. And too injured to put up any kind of fight. I said, we have to do it. And there we go. So, yeah.
Jeremy knows to time that from now on. Whenever you're
Yeah.
injured and on any sort of painkillers, we can float any sort of movies right past you.
That's right.
This is also creating some perverse incentives. Like, we'll hire a guy to come out and break your thumbs.
There we go. That's keeping in the genre spirit.
I was going to say, we're getting really deep into noir now. IRL. Today's Hot Summer Noir series is going to be focused on 3 films: Detour from 1945, Pickup on South Street from 1953, and Red Rock West from 1993. I believe we said this at the beginning of the show, or at least when we were chatting. 3 bangers, absolutely. No notes, as Alex said. Let's get into it. Let's get into Detour.
Yeah. Well, if for those of you listening, if you've never seen Detour, it is playing on the Grindhouse Institute YouTube channel because it is in the public domain. And if you have a spare hour and 8 minutes, you'll be able to watch the entire thing.
This is a quick one. This is the kind of movie that Joe Dante loves. 68-minute picture. Yeah.
It is a classic nightmare noir.
Yeah, it feels like a nightmare, a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, the most unlucky guy stumbling into multiple deaths.
Yeah.
That's life. Whichever way you turn, fate sticks out a foot to trip you.
It's so short. It's like a little bottle rocket. I love Detour, and do you guys know the sort of the tumultuous story of its rediscovery and sort of being restored? Do you guys know anything about that?
Not much. I heard it was lost, but I heard that I'd love to know more.
I saw a little bit about the restoration, but why don't you kick it off?
Well, it was in the public domain, so a lot of really bad versions existed for a long time. And in the 2010s, the Academy Film Archive found a print that was so close to the negative, but it was in Belgium and it had Flemish subtitles and French subtitles, I believe.
It was both, like one on top of the other type of thing.
Yeah. So, but the problem is it was on the print. For a restoration.
Yeah.
Right. So they had to find another print from the Museum of Modern Art, and with some actual filling in the gaps themselves, hand redoing some frames that have been lost. They put this print from MoMA over the print that they got from Belgium and recreated the version that we have now that looks so pristine.
You mean to get rid of the subtitles, right?
To get rid of the subtitles there's also a couple frames missing of each of the alternatives. So one would act as a crutch on the other. And then I think there was even a third one pulled in from somewhere. But so the version that we have now that looks so good.
Good solution.
Right. Taking the 3 different versions. Yeah, it was a painstaking process.
Sure, I bet.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And then it was, I think 2018, it was when it was really reintroduced on TCM, played the circuit of rep houses. And yeah, that's the Detour we know now. If we were doing this 10 years ago, it might be the crappy, shoddy version that everyone would have known until then. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one I was familiar with. That was the first time I was able to see it in this sort of new print and new look of it. Because, the one I was familiar with was the really old and crummy, it was 18th generation VHS. It was all it was pure mud on the screen.
Right.
And man, it's funny, obviously it's amazing what they did to restore it, and it looks incredible. But this movie was made for 2 toothpicks and a button and in your pocket a lint, and it's it kind of shows in certain moments. At one point, Ann Savage is throwing her shoes off, and it bangs against the wall, but the wall kind of flaps because it's made of canvas.
Right.
But this was a PRC film, isn't that what the acronym for the production? It's like it was.
Oh, the Poverty Row.
Poverty Row, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like falling from the curb to the gutter is when people would start acting in this group as opposed to the main studios, So, but. This one's awesome, and I think this is like one of the last that Ann Savage and Tom Neal were like known for, and it's a really great film to have them kind of go out on,
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get along. They did not get along at all.
It kind of worked for their characters.
Yeah, I was gonna say that worked for is that method?
Well, she says to
the
him,
meanest woman in the history of movies, perhaps.
She really is. She ups any femme fatale. She like ups the venom with her like spitfire speed, the depth of hatred she seems to have for Tom Neal, who honestly is also kind of a dopey schmuck, like with his big Looney Tunes eyes. Like when she says, "I don't like you," it feels like she's actually saying it.
Listen, mister, don't try and tell me anything about Charlie Haskell. Remember, I knew him better than you did.
Now, wait a
Shut
minute.
up. You're a cheap crook and you killed him. For 2 cents, I'd change my mind and turn you in. I don't like you.
All right, don't get sore.
I'm not getting sore, but just remember who's boss around here. If you shut up and don't give me any arguments, you'll have nothing to worry about. But if you act wise, well, mister, you'll pop into jail so fast it'll give you the bends. Doesn't make a difference one way or another. I'm not a mourner. I liked Haskell even less than I like you.
He put his tongue in her ear on set, to embarrass her. She slapped him in front of everyone, and from that day on, they didn't talk on set unless they're doing a scene together. Wow. So there was actual tension. They did not get along.
That was in the Belgian version.
Yeah.
There seemed to be some serious vitriol coming off of that woman, some serious venom, as you say. She transforms too along the course of it too. It's really interesting.
Well, there's that part where she's like kind of flirting with him. She said she's like reaching for his hands. Did you notice that shot? Like his crotch is in frame. She like reaches for him, and she said something like, "You got to take a swing at what comes along before you reach the 9th inning." So she's like gonna turn him in and have sex with him. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Well, man, speaking of that though, like the dialogue in this is just so crackling. It's just it's just whip cracks for every single thing that they're saying to each other. And it's not just those two. It's when they're talking to the car salesman or when they're in the diner, and it's like the guy who like sidles up to Tom Neal and is like, "Hey, I need someone to talk to, or I'm gonna fall asleep on the road. If you're coming my direction, why don't we go chat?" And they start yelling at each other. And then at one point, that guy tries to get some change from the woman who runs the little diner, and he's like, "Hey, gorgeous, get over here." And it's like it's this older lady, and gets this change, and she's like, geez, why don't you play something nice? My head's splitting. He's like, is that what's wrong with it?
They seem to know each other. They definitely seem to know each other. It was like that
the entire time, though. Everybody was just like sparring with words the entire time. I think it was like it's the kind of dialogue that would make Howard Hawks blush. It's just it was great, really great.
Oh yeah, even the guy that gets picked up, he talks about basically throwing Ann Savage out when he realizes she's not a prostitute.
Give a lift to a tomato, you expect her to be nice, don't you? Yeah. After all, what kind of dame some rides? Sunday school teachers?
Yeah.
He uses a really weird phrase, "take it on the Arthur Duffy." That's a reference to a runner that was in the 1900 Olympic Games in Paris.
Yeah, that's a reference that... Yeah.
Oh, exactly. So lost to time. But it basically means get out of here. Like, take it like this runner.
Get out and walk.
Run fast,
get out
you
and
mean?
run. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when he threw Ann Savage. So there's also just like some antiquated phrases. There's also phrases that are currently still in vogue at 2 different points. At one, Tom Neal says, "I was cooked." That's a very Gen Z, I'm cooked.
Let him cook.
Yeah. My goose was cooked. I think that it's used a couple times. That'll cook us. Yeah. And the Gen Z modern slang of like, I'm cooked. It's weird to hear it in this old film.
Yeah, that's back. Yeah. They didn't mention Riz though in this, which I was waiting for.
No, but it was the Riz Cafe where he first met, where he's doing a lot of the voiceover. No, I'm just kidding. I think it was called the Break of Dawn Cafe. Break of Dawn Club. I did make a note of that, yeah.
Well, that was where he was playing the piano in New York. I don't know what
that was his flashback, right?
Diner
oh,
in Reno
that was that. You know,
Yeah.
good point. Good point. That was the New York. Which, by the way, New York, quote unquote, is fog, a light post, like a drape and shadows. Like it's the
small
barest,
corner set, outside set. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the barest bones of a budget.
Yeah, no,
New York.
These are like, you know, Ed Wood style sound stages and like budget levels or whatever, but
yeah,
you know, able to do it with much better writing and you know, actors who can deliver. But you know, almost all of it was on sound stages, you know.
This has got to be a movie that every film student should see, especially as a young filmmaker. I mean, a lot is done with nothing, or not much.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, not nothing, but
yeah,
there's still
next to
production
nothing.
budget,
Yeah.
next to nothing.
So apparently the phone chord sequence was thought up right before filming. That is insane.
It looks like it. Yeah.
It does, but it's such a good bookend. Like, what were they going to do instead? Like, what was the alternative?
It does feel like there's no other option for the story to go, but they did find kind of an, I don't know, clumsy way of doing it, but it worked. I mean, an accidental kill, that's what you mean, right? When he accidentally strangles Verna at the end there.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but her whole
Vera.
Vera. Walking around with it around her neck kind of thing, like the way that they have to set it up is preposterous, but like it's so nasty, and that I've never seen that in a movie before. It's so simple too.
Well, when he's holding that cord and it's like wrapped around both hands and he's yanking with all his might.
He's like an MMA guy, like choking somebody out with the.
It looks like he's like putting everything into it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the ridiculous part is like how she ended up in that situation with like the lever and pulley system over the back of the bed post, and then like, you know, the phone cord around her neck, and she like, you know, did it twice or three times maybe. But that is just as ridiculous as when Charles Haskell Jr. falls out of his car and cracks his skull there. And
was he dead first though?
This time, well, that was a guess that he had at one point. But, you know, this time around watching it, it was interesting because it feels like what you're supposed to take away, I think, first time around and the sort of first blush viewing type of thing is that, yeah, this is the most unlucky guy in the world. And just like he just happens to have people falling dead around him all the time. It's freak accidents. And no witnesses and, you know, sort of no way to corroborate these things and whatever. But, you know, this time around, I was thinking, geez, he is talking a lot about this in his voiceover to the audience, to
unreliable
himself.
Unreliable narrator.
Is he an unreliable narrator? Are we seeing these things that he is trying to like, no, what happened was he fell and I had nothing to do with it. Who would believe my story? I had to take all of his clothes and his wallet and his car. You know, like who the hell would believe this?
That
and
like steps on the gas of this movie quite a bit when you mention, like when you put it in that kind of frame. Yeah.
Right. And it gives the whole thing kind of this like dreamlike quality where it's like, you know, this guy in his own mind is just like this perfect victim.
But is he?
Yeah, but is he? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so it kind of makes it even more noir to think of it that way too.
That's really funny that you say that. That thought occurred in my mind too when it goes into the flashback. Which, by the way, that's such a long shot. The camera moves in, and then it's very theatrical. Like it's an in-camera light shift onto his eyes, right? Like
right.
the whole
it turns into sort of the Dracula little like you know, box light just on his eyes type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole diner kind of
slit light.
fades. Meaning the actors would have been seeing that in the room, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
The moments that aren't a memory, the moments that are like objectively current, right, quote unquote, the timeline of the film.
Mm-hmm.
He is such an asshole. I'm so like, he is so rude.
That's true. Yeah.
Everyone in the beginning, and then in the past. I mean, I know it's like sunnier pastures, and then him really under, under pressure. Yeah. But he could just be lying about the entire encounters. You know, the entire series of encounters.
Right.
Yeah. So that did cross my mind too. He could just be making all this up and have actually done both of these murders with malice.
Does anyone want to give the 10-second what actually happens in this movie so anyone that hasn't seen it is clear about it? We've kind of got into it, as we do.
Yeah, we jumped right into it.
It's okay. It's been out there since 45. So
yeah, Tom Neal is the actor playing Al Roberts, And he is in New York. His best gal goes off to Hollywood to make it big, and he's
Starlet.
like, "Listen, baby, I'll follow you out there, baby." And he goes and like tries to hitchhike his way
From New York to LA.
New York.
That's a fucking hell of a hitchhike.
Yeah.
But he makes it out to like I don't know where.
Are we gonna take the Rockies or go the southern route?
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
yeah. He makes it out somewhere, out in the desert somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like he's getting pretty dang close, and hitches a ride with this guy. He takes a shift driving that guy, and it starts raining, so he goes to put the top up. The guy falls out of the car and cracks his head, and he dies.
Pulls the whole
And
like
then-
Clark Griswold dead person on the roof. You know?
He just like is like, forget it. I'll just like swap all this stuff. Who would ever believe this? And then takes the guy's car, and then
And his identification.
And his identification. And wouldn't you know it, the person he picked up was someone that the dead guy had thumbed a ride with for 6 states or whatever.
Where did you leave his body? Where did you leave the owner of this car? You're not fooling anyone. This buggy belongs to a guy named Haskell. That's not you, mister.
You're out of your mind. That's my name, Charles Haskell. I can prove it. It's my driver's
Save
license.
yourself the trouble, mister. Having Haskell's wallet only makes it worse. It just so happens I rode with Charlie Haskell, all the way from Louisiana. He picked me up outside of Shreveport.
You rode?
You heard me.
This is when it sounds like a dream, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
how would all these things happen so cleanly?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so now she's, blackmailing him and really pulling the strings on him and making him do crazy things that he doesn't want to do. And it gets the noose gets tighter and tighter as the thing goes along.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And also saying things to him like, "Shut up, you're making noises like a husband." You'll be if she doesn't listen to him, he'll be sniffing that perfume Arizona hands out free to murderers.
Right. Dude, the dialogue
yeah.
is so awesome.
Such good dialogue. She is just
There ought to
vicious.
be a law against dames with claws.
But then she wants part of it. And so she wants him to keep the identity, poses
Right,
his
because
wife.
there was an inheritance that could potentially be coming his way. So if he has the background knowledge of this, I want to say Haskell Wexler, because that's what he just did. But
Charles
kind of
Haskell Wexler Jr.
Exactly, this name of this other guy, and he needs to know all this in order to collect this inheritance. And he gets cold feet about it, can't do it. So she gets drunk, gets pissed, and he decides, and he accidentally strangles her with a telephone cord.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's kind of.
At one point, they both eat a ham sandwich and coffee, and that sounds disgusting. So, there's that.
Oh, are you kidding? Have you ever had ham sandwich and coffee? You don't know. What you're
Dip
missing.
it.
Yeah.
Dunk it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the plot.
Kind of a simple. I would say. No, I don't want to say like by the books, but I think a really good version of a noir. If somebody wants to watch one, especially with this odd dream logic that's kind of added or an added bonus. Pretty cool film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, like it also has a little bit of that sort of song he hears in the jukebox, and he kind of freaks out. And this is like during the sort of more objective reality section where we're seeing him be a total asshole, and everyone's yelling at him like, "Quit being such a creep, you dickhead! We're just listening to music here." The music is haunting him, and a little like Casablanca, and so that there's a little bit of that happening. But it is funny how most of this movie is a series of all these like flashbacks. He's sort of narrating the movie, not to anyone in particular. And then when we get to the very end of the movie, he then has a flash forward to a dream thing. And in that dream and, projection of his imagination, he is also being persecuted, which is like the sort of complex he seems to have in all of his flashbacks too, of like just, everything bad happens to me. Why does it happen to me? And like, on the sort of one level, it feels like, yeah, this is the most unlucky guy in the world, and a series of unfortunate events tumbled him into jail, basically. Mm-hmm. And then in another reading, he did this to himself and is trying to explain away this guilt or whatever that he has by painting himself as a victim.
Mm.
The dream logic nature of it. There isn't an entire section at the end where like the camera's out of focus, going up to things in the room, and then going into focus and showing these things. Yeah. And then there's like little visual moments of like showing time pass from like a full bottle to an empty bottle, an empty ashtray to a full ashtray.
Right.
Ellipses, the time ellipses.
Yeah. The way that all the characters are like related to each other, the smallness of the desert. I mean, there's like Joshua Tree and
kind of Mulholland Drive-ish, right? Like people are falling into place in your head, but they're
this
different
is
people
not,
that you know.
this is not the first film of the trio that I say has David Lynch overtones, which I think in Red Rock West is like crazy. Right. But definitely here too with Lost Highway. Yeah. I love Detour, and I think, Brian, you're right. It's like Double Indemnity, Postman Always Rings Twice, The Killing. There's like a handful that will always be like prime examples of the genre. Yeah. You know, Kiss Me Deadly. There's a couple that will always be prime examples.
If this were fiction, I would fall in love with Vera, marry her, and make a respectable woman of her. Or else she'd make some supreme Class A sacrifice for me and die. Sue and I would bawl a little over her grave and make some crack about there's good in all of us. But Vera, unfortunately, was just as rotten in the morning as she'd been the night before.
Do you guys know about Tom Neal, his life?
No, not at all.
Of less interest is the fact that his son starred in a 1992 remake, which you can find on YouTube. Oh. Not as good as the original.
A 92 remake of this? Really?
Yeah, it's not. It's not. That's probably the least interesting thing about Tom Neal's life. Tom Neal was in an affair with Barbara Payton and got in a fight with Franchot Tone, who I only really know from like a noir called Phantom Lady with Ella Raines. Really good. He beat up Franchot Tone so badly with Barbara Payton watching. Franchot Tone had to, and I think I'm saying his name correctly, he had a concussion. He had broken cheekbones. And that kind of put Tom Neal on the outs in Hollywood for like beating up this like big movie star. Barbara Payton continued her affair with Tom Neal, the guy from Detour. So Franchot Tone divorced her. That ended her career. She had a horrible problem with alcoholism as well. Barbara Payton and Tom Neal tried to like revitalize their career by doing this Western together, The Great Jesse James Raid or something. And they also did Postman Always Rings Twice on the stage. It never really came back. He became a gardener landscaper in Palm Springs, where he met a receptionist and shot her in an altercation and did 6 years for manslaughter.
Whoa.
Tom Neal actually had murder and like a physical altercation kind of in his own private life.
Wow. Shot and killed a girl, got 6 years?
I know. Yeah, he got out on parole. Yeah, I don't really understand the technicality of it, but it was secondhand manslaughter, I believe.
That's wild.
Huh.
In the
because
60s.
he was just shooting a gun randomly and
he went like
someone walked into the bullet?
They were fighting. Involuntary manslaughter, not secondhand. Yeah, it was involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10, paroled in 72. He died in North Hollywood, body found by his son.
It was a magic bullet.
Yeah. Wow.
It happened to be in Dallas.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, just crazy personal life. And like the house where he shot his wife is still there. My friend, who I wanted to be on this episode, she was busy. She's visited that house and like taking pictures in front. She like loves this film so much. So
cool.
Yeah. A little interesting stuff there.
Yeah, so Tom Neal, it sounds like was maybe the basis for the Al Roberts character. It's like life sort of imitating art there. Involuntary manslaughter, wouldn't that be sort of what this character would have gotten?
I guess so.
Hit the phone cord?
Yeah, and the guy that had a heart attack next to him, and then he knocked him out of the car and cracked his skull open.
That is the slipperiest, like, heart attack, because they set it up with the pill, but it's like heart attack and fall.
Which makes you think, right? Did he,
yeah,
like, thinking at this from a dream logic standpoint, did he say, no, he was dead already? And in his head, and that's how he justified the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
He died so easily, because he was already dead.
Yeah. I just dropped him on this boulder here and scrambled his head.
Yeah.
The only other thing I just wanted to point out that's kind of funny is, you can see the Bradbury building, the LA building in the background.
Yeah.
You wouldn't dare your chicken when Vera says that. That reminded me of Back to the Future, Marty McFly's insane responses to that. And
wait, question. Did that only start in 2? Or was that something that they introduced in 1 that they just kind of retconned into 2?
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I think it's touched on in 1, but it became a thing in 2 because they said that they needed to give him an internal struggle, and they decided it was that he doesn't like being called. I think it's a very weak script choice, but I mean, they ran with it, and it's like that's the thing.
But that was a thing they just kind of put into 2, but
really
gave
turned
it to
up
Marty
in 2.
as I gotcha.
I like Tom Neal's responses to the bookie when the bookie's like talking about Ann Savage. Tom Neal's very quick, like that'll do it. It's just he's like barely listening. He's like dealing with this guy that just picked him up. I think that's a very funny modern exchange.
Right.
But yeah, Detour's great. Also, the cover, the yellow and black. I could go on about Detour.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah.
No, it's really great. And it's sort of like the sort of very quintessential film noir. It has sort of all of the elements rolled up into one very tight package. And
very tight.
You know, even though like we were sitting there like explaining the plot of this thing and we were going on forever and ever, it feels like they packed so much into such a small amount of minutes.
Take note
on the screen,
everyone that's listening. We don't need 3-hour movies.
Yeah,
especially us with kids.
Well, 1 hour and 8 minutes is good. Okay.
They did it.
Yeah, they did it. It can be done.
Should we join Skip the Pickpocket for some hijinks?
Yeah.
Some grifting.
Sam Fuller. Have you all seen many Sam Fuller films? I think Shock Corridor was the first one I saw.
I have not seen many, but I mean, obviously the name is very, very well known.
Yeah, Naked Kiss. Yeah, Shock Corridor. What was the one he did?
Naked Kiss is like perverse. That is a fucked up film.
Yeah. The one I was going to bring up was The Crimson Kimono, which is an interesting sort of police procedural film noir, but it tackles these racial issues and some of the taboos at that time, because it was like they had a Japanese American character that they portrayed as like a full human, and it was like, you know, it was tough for some of the characters, like, what? But I thought and oh no, I thought he was the enemy, and you know, all these things.
Right.
And it's fantastic. But from the movies of his I've seen, they were all kind of in that low budget feel. It's very common to have frames with, you know, a focus buzz and not quite in focus. But there's a lot of like sort of low budget charm to his stuff.
Totally. A lot of genres too.
Yeah.
I've seen his westerns are really good. I shot Jesse James and 40 Guns.
Yeah. Oh, he did the Baron of Arizona. That's kind of a western, kind of noir.
That's the Vincent Price. I've never seen that
Vincent Price one. Yeah, exactly.
Vincent Price in a western.
Yeah.
Kind
of. He kind of plays this bad guy who is like the Greenville worm tongue of this town in Arizona. So it's kind of cool.
Wow, what a good reference there.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Sam Fuller, like often like bold characters, bold side characters, things that like border on risque or censorship problems, but aren't actually. I mean, the entire opening of Pickup on South Street is, and I only say this word because it is literally what he's doing, fingering her purse, and it's on their faces, and it's up close, and there's nothing sexual going on, but it's shot in such a way with her looking at him, Jean Peters. There's a tension there. There's something there.
Tension. It's like sweaty. It's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's definitely this hard to pinpoint and hard to like, you know, put your finger on, but like there's something going on there. Yeah.
Yeah. They were forced to make it a little less sensual because it is. Oh yeah, and everything around her too. There's so much innuendo around. You gonna throw that in my face again about her past? You know.
Right.
What did you guys think of Pickup on South Street?
Oh, I thought it was great.
Right.
I hadn't seen it in so long, but
it's good, right?
I loved it. Yeah. Well, I think all three of these are probably the best group of movies we've watched on the noir programming for sure. This is a good group.
Yeah, it was great, and I you know, like you're saying earlier, the cast in this is incredible. Any movie with Thelma Ritter in it, exactly. Thelma Ritter is just a god among mortals in everything she does. She's always the best.
Oh my god, she's so good. I just love how she straddled the line between the criminals, and she basically made her money as an informant, right? Like a CI. And she's the stoolie. I think that's like the nickname for those CIs or criminal informants, you know. But she, I guess, was nominated for an Academy Award for this performance, which makes sense.
Oh, wow.
She was, yeah.
She's a
I think this is
for
fourth
sure.
in a row, fourth Academy Award nomination in a row, like within years.
Wow.
I also love, what does the Richard Widmark say? Like, she's got to eat too when he finds out that she sold him out.
I figure you shelled out about $50 to find me. If I know Mo. Now, Mo's all right. She's got to eat.
I guess Jean Peters was supposed to be Candy, the Jean Peters character, was supposed to be played by Marilyn Monroe, but Fuller passed on this up-and-coming actress that was supposed to play that role at the time.
Right. I also have Ava Gardner was considered. Shelley Winters was up for the role. It almost went to Betty Grable, who insisted on adding dance numbers, which would have been fucking awful. I'm so glad that they didn't do that. But yeah, she almost threatened to sue the film or cause problems. So Fuller stuff. Jean Peters was only cast because I think Fuller saw her walking in the studio commissary during lunch and just said, "You have the look and the walk."
Yeah.
Just
That's
easier
it.
then.
Yeah, I mean, she's absolutely dreamy. Like she's beautiful.
She's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, going back to that seat on the subway, it was it was so cool. I mean, because you didn't know what the hell was going on, and it's just, you see these two guys that we later find out are, I don't know, FBI or something like that.
Yeah, feds. Yeah.
But at the time you didn't know what the hell was going on. But you see them, they're both like staring at her. Are they leering at her?
Were they looking at her, or were they seeing him?
Well, because they didn't see Richard Widmark till later, because he gets on at another stop, and what's funny is, like, right when he gets on, they show like kind of a lower shot, and you see the ceiling of the subway train, and like in it is like a fan up there, which is like, it was really wild to see. And then it's like, so you have these like three men kind of checking her out or whatever, and maybe that is probably part of what's kind of helping to put some of the sexual imagery and thoughts in your mind, because of the way that everyone's sort of leering at her. But it turns out, like, the two G-men are doing that because they're trying to tail her and follow and see where she goes.
Her drop-off.
And see what the drop-off's going to be. And then, what Richard Widmark's up to is trying to rob her.
He just wants a few bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how this is also a wronged man. All three of these films are wronged. I mean, so the first one's classic noir. This is like Cold War paranoid noir.
Yeah, sure.
With a bit of political
Red Scare.
overtone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Red Scare. And then finally there's like a classic post-Western, neo-Western noir, right? But all three are guys getting into situations, classic noir, over their head, right?
Right.
And it snowballs on them.
It really does. And this is the one where he leans into it the most, where he himself is also slippery. Almost he's like, somebody gonna match my freak, which, this situation, this is the only one. I mean, Nicolas Cage is just kind of yes-anding and not really thinking things through.
Absolutely just yes-anding through.
Yeah. He would have done great at UCB.
Sure. Are you Wayne?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. We'll get to that. It's a fun one.
And then fucking Tom Neal is just like a poor guy, just literally like the world's dumbest man.
Yeah.
If his narration is to be believed.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy is like, he's trying to play the situation.
He's
for
savvy,
a win.
right? Like, real sharp. Yeah. This is the sharpest lead, I'd say. Like, Nick Cage feels a little bumbling. I mean, he does well. It's a great lead man in Red Rock. And then, Tom Neal, again, kind of like the wide eyes, like you said, just kind of cartoonish. Richard Widmark is a badass in this.
He's
got it down. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he like punches her and then like forces
and
her
then
to
she's
kiss
into
him.
And
right.
then she's into. I'm learning a lot from these movies.
Yeah.
I see how we're supposed to be now.
As fucked up as that whole thing is, there's great dialogue in that sequence where it's like everybody likes everybody when they're kissing, and everybody's always different. And tomorrow you'll like somebody else. And there's this hook in the foreground when they kiss, and it's like, oh, Sam Fuller, we know what you're doing. He's on the hook. He's fucked. It's like, it's not very subtle, but it's so good,
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's clean. Yeah.
Oh, and I love, so like Richard Widmark is playing the 3-time loser pickpocket, and he just got out of prison, so he's in this like essentially this little like halfway house, but it's a little tiny like shack on the river.
Yeah.
On presumably the Hudson there, because this one takes place in New York. And it's funny because, like, speaking of the archetypes of film noir, Jean Peters, I think Fuller was right to go with her over even someone like Marilyn Monroe or whatever, because, like, it feels like from the very beginning that Jean Peters is going to be the sort of really devious femme fatale, and then, like, that's the direction you're headed in, and that's like the type of character this is supposed to be when you first see her. And it's sort of not till later that you kind of
that's what I thought.
Peel back some more layers or whatever, and find that she's got the she's a little more soft in the core and not as hardened as her exterior seems to be.
Because Richard Widmark he's gorgeous. Come on. Look at that guy. Sharp.
Yeah.
The suit, the hat.
Listen,
man.
he's got a little pulley system to have a little crate in the river to cool off the
keep his
beer.
beers. Yeah.
He doesn't have any electricity, and like
no need for a refrigerator. Keep your beers in the river.
He sleeps in a hammock, and he's got a little private dock.
I got a small waterfront property, baby. Come on and check out my spot.
Listen, any little storm that thing is going down, but like for the time being, it's pretty cool.
Oh, climate change is not kind to his waterfront shack. I love the keeping the beer cold in the river is such an important plot point because of where he hides the film.
Right.
Oh, Winaki, just two things. After you give my place the broom, leave it the way you found it, huh? And when you got enough beer, lower my icebox bag and a drink. Come on, Mac.
Also, Mom gets her head shot off. I mean, I just want to point out for like a noir, that is really, really a dark detail.
You threatening to blow my head off? Ask a silly question, you get a dopey look.
I mean, it's off camera, but it is really quick and it is really brutal, especially because of the performance that she delivers right before that all happened.
Look, mister, I'm so tired. You'd be doing me a big favor if you'd blow my head off.
Again, most all the movie for me. She was my favorite part. And when she got killed, what you're bringing up now, that one hit me harder than most murders in movies. Because I was like, wow, the way they set it up. She's like, you know what? I thought I'd be able to get out of here. I thought I'd be raising enough money to actually pretty much retire like cleanly.
No,
nah.
it's not that she wanted to retire. She just wanted to like not be buried in a pauper's grave. Like
that's what it was. That's what it was.
That's like
Thank
the
you.
saddest
That's what
like
it was. She just
motivation
didn't
for this
want
character.
a shitty grave, right? Like that was. That's right.
He gets her out of too, right? He gets
so
her out of
good.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That comes around too. See, this is really well written.
So many details feel real too, because Fuller did work in the newspaper industry. I believe there is a newspaper movie he did.
Oh, Park Row?
Yeah, exactly. About the period press. Yeah. He was so steeped in like being like a media journalist type. A lot of these details peppered through the film are real.
From news. Yeah.
Taken from news. The two that struck me is like, that feels like something he heard is her selling neckties, like just like the person selling neckties being kind of shady, and the guy having two nicknames for uptown and downtown.
Right. The guy like just
forgot about that.
Noodles in his face or whatever, and he's like, yeah, that is me. You're looking for the right guy.
Grabbing the money with his chopsticks. That's such a good detail.
Yeah. I know. And then he like, so he's sitting there just like shoveling noodles in his mouth. He takes his chopsticks, takes the money off the table, puts it in his pocket, goes back to shoveling noodles in his mouth.
Dirty
that
ass
fucking
money.
filthy money.
It's just disgusting. Disgusting.
How many hands has that passed? Yeah.
Also, this is so minor, but does anyone notice there's a part where, I forget who it is. Someone escapes into an alleyway and knocks over a barrel. And as they're running off, a cat is kind of thrown from off screen. It's clearly like a PA just been told to throw a cat into the script frame. Because the cat just kind of... Yeah, it just lands and looks around. It's like, it's like an alley cat, but it's just so funny.
I think that was when the guy was in the dumbwaiter and like
yes, it was the dumbwaiter.
Guy.
Yeah, it was at the end. Yeah.
That was a cool scene. Really shot well with the verticality going up and down. And
right.
It seemed very claustrophobic in there. That was great.
Yeah, he was like, hey, check the dumbwaiter.
Yeah, that's not where I would hide.
I don't even know if I could bend like that. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at that like.
Listen, this guy was in Cirque du Soleil before he got involved.
Didn't you get that part of the backstory earlier? He was the commie, right? He's the one that killed Mo, right? The one that was hiding the Cirque du Soleil member that hid in the dumbwaiter.
Yes. There's so much little clever things Fuller does. I already mentioned the hook, but like right before her head gets blown off, the record scratch, the end of the vinyl.
Right.
But then there's also this thing of like, I don't even know if this is intentional. I think just water as like a presence of like sensuality in this film. Mm-hmm. So like they share the beer and the beer spills, right? He lives by the harbor, right? There's something about his like little shack. And then there's a scene where she's taking this like bubble bath and she's like covered in the bubbles. There's just all these little moments where like water or liquid gives way to what might be like sensuality with someone where it shouldn't be, where it seems dangerous. That's like kind of like a subconscious poetical element to a film that, could just be like a straight up Cold War pot boiler,
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, because the love story part of this was actually, it was done so well, and like the romance aspect of it, and how complicated it was. It wasn't like as soon as they fell in love, he was immediately giving up all of his schemes, and she was immediately giving up all her schemes. They were kind of like going back and forth, and kind of a push and pull, and it was rendered so well in this. Is what I'm trying to say.
There's also, I mean, I don't really want to like get into what this means or the meaning behind it, but there's such suggestive dialogue in him calling her muffin and him saying, "You hit oil and you hit a gush." I'm not gonna unpack any of that, but I'm just saying
you don't need to. Yeah, that's pretty clear. Yeah.
The way that it's a Sam Fuller film, he has saying that like he's using the phrase "gush" over and over again, oil flowing. Yeah. Like there's something in here about their chemistry that is in the dialogue and laced there. They did have problems with censorship. I did mention they being too close to each other on the train. The real problems came from J. Edgar Hoover. He really didn't like, one, that feds were on the take, like paying informants for news. Or not, that's the opposite. The feds were kind of like using bribes rather.
Right.
And two, he really didn't like the phrase, "Are you waving the flag at me?"
Right.
Or like, "Don't wave the flag at me." He really didn't like that as like an insult of like patriotism as like a weaponized thing, Yeah.
It's so wild given how deep in the milieu of McCarthy era Red Scare, commie paranoia, commies around every corner, and they're coming to like destroy the entire world you live in, that this movie was, that like even that wasn't good enough for this guy. Like, it's just like, it's crazy.
You know what's crazy about the whole thing? He said I was a commie. Did you ever hear of such a thing? What makes people like that? Where do they get such ideas? All right, he wants to shake us down, but to start calling us commies.
Who's gunning for me?
What's the matter with you? Playing footsies with the commies.
You waving a flag, too?
I never figured you for a louse.
Stop, you're breaking my heart.
Even in our crummy kind of business, you gotta draw the line somewhere. He's as shifty as smoke, but I love him.
You sold him out for $50. But you wouldn't sell him to a commie.
What do you think I am, an informer?
Well,
no one's anti-communist until they're involved. Like, it's like no one is idealistic until their back is against the wall.
Everyone is anti-communist. So like, I wouldn't fuck with a red. And like, it's like...
until they're in trouble or until they have their own stake. Starting off, it's who gives a shit, right? Yeah. But the minute they're at a loss...
The movie, like, hits home for sure, the, like, better dead than red type of thing. And it's like, it is funny, like, how, rabid Hoover was, that, like, it's like, it wasn't enough in this one.
Why are you holding back on me? You'd sell anybody for buttons.
Yeah, but not to you, mister. And I know what you're after. I know you commies are looking for some film that don't belong to you.
What else do you know?
What do I know about commies? Nothing. I just don't like them.
The criminals who are a bit apathetic, when they realize that their nut, quote unquote, is at stake, or that they could like lose out on this, then it becomes those damn commies. And I think that also pissed off Hoover more, because it's like they should be caught like anti-communists to begin with.
Right.
It's funny now in 2024 when they are like getting really mad about communists. Or Thelma Ritter says something like, "Even a fancy funeral ain't worth waiting for if I got to do business with crumbs like you." That all sounds very like jingoistic now. It sounds like nationalistic. It sounds like, did Hoover pay them to put that in there? Right. But again, a lot of the stuff I read points out that people don't really become quote unquote American until their own money loss is a part of it. That's how these lines sound in 2024. The idea of like the Red Scare is so crazy and quaint now.
You tell that commie I want a big score for that film, and I want it in cash.
Tonight.
So you're a red. Who cares? Your money's as good as anybody else's.
A red?
Take off.
You think I'm a red?
I don't think anything. I know. I know what you're after. I know what it's worth.
Look, Skip, you gotta believe me.
I gotta believe nobody. I'll do business with a red, but I don't have to believe one.
This was remade at one point. I'd never heard of this movie called The Cape Town Affair.
I was going to ask if you guys had seen it.
Cape Town? So it's in South Africa?
Yeah, it takes place
think
in
so.
South Africa. Yeah.
Wow.
James Brolin is his first leading role, and Jacqueline Bisset is in it. So yeah, 1967.
No, I really, really love how the whole pickpocket thing comes back in the end to, wrap the whole thing up. Because it was funny, like, his sort of crime and, like, his specialty was interesting. And we never really see him do it outside of the sort of very beginning. Because then after that, he gets into this payoff scheme. But then he finally gets to, use his skills, and he lifts that guy's gun, and, like, the whole confrontation in the bathroom. A movie like this really has trouble in the third act oftentimes, and this one nailed it.
I did wish they made better use of the subway train tracks. Like the fight on the tracks, I thought for sure was going to end with someone getting hit.
Right.
That is the only thing I was like, that would have been kind of cool, just from like a noir, creative way for a villain to, But no, I love this film. It was such a pleasure to rewatch. Actually, better upon rewatch. I remember liking it before, but thinking, okay,
Same.
yeah, this is fine. Yeah, it really, really stood out.
Yeah, both Detour and Pick Up on South Street, I liked a lot better this time around than I did even the first time.
Black Shadows. Joe McDonald. That's the DP. Oh my God.
On
Such
South Street?
good dark. It's on South Street. Yeah, Detour too, but Pickup is like, man, it is like just deep, rich blacks. Yeah,
no, it's beautiful.
Everybody likes everybody when they're kissing.
And everybody's always different.
Tomorrow you'll like somebody else.
I never felt like this.
You're talking like you got a fever.
Let's move on to Red Rock West, and or I guess you could call this "Welcome to You Are Leaving Red Rock."
Yeah.
So what do you say? You want to go to Mexico with me or what? What do you think we should do?
Get a cup of coffee.
I got a better idea.
Okay, what's that?
Comfort Inn.
Have you guys seen Last Seduction? The other John Dahl movie?
No, I was trying to look up more about John Dahl as well. Yeah.
Fiorentina, what's her name?
Linda Fiorentino.
Fiorentina. Yeah, she was.
These
great
are, I think, his two big. He also did Rounders and Joyride. He has some other big movies, but Red Rock West and Last Seduction are kind of paired together as like his like neo-noir 90s gems. I haven't seen his first film, which is supposed to be good.
This was awesome.
You like this one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Okay, good.
This one's got everything that I want in a movie. It came out in the 90s. You've got Nick Cage, Lara Flynn Boyle,
J.T. Walsh. Hell yeah.
And then Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
And then Dwight Yoakam shows up.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, dude.
This is a fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
This movie's great.
Yeah, this is the only one of the three I hadn't seen, and I've been dying to see it for a long time, and I was so pleasantly surprised.
Oh man, it's
with
great.
How it came together.
It's
so good. Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. It feels to me the most, we touched on this already, but like, okay, there is like a David Lynch thing over this film because it feels like the world of like the straight story, and it has a bit of the Angelo Badalamenti Twin Peaks soundtrack.
Yeah.
But you have Dennis Hopper redoing Frank Booth from Blue Velvet. It's the same fucking character.
Right. I think he's in the same outfit too.
I think it's the same outfit, yeah.
Well, and you got that lead from Wild at Heart.
You have Nicolas Cage
and
then
Twin Peaks,
and Lara Flynn Boyle from Twin Peaks. It's like a remix. It's like a weird dream of a David Lynch film.
Right.
Without some of the details and minor like flights of fancy. It's much more like plot. This is just plot. It's so the character decisions are so minimal. But the plot just propels it, and there's so many great turns.
But I mean, Nick Cage falls into that same, and I know it's only a bit of like Mulholland Drive, but Mark Pellegrino, when he goes in to kill the girl, takes another shot to make it look like a suicide, ends up shooting someone through the wall. That person needed to be taken care of, and then the cops saw him, so he had to take care of that. The alarm goes off in the place, and it was like the same kind of feeling that every move this guy made, it just kept digging him deeper into this world. And it starts out great. Like, he feels like seems like a normal guy. He's just kind of down on his luck, right? He has a leg injury, I'm assuming from a war wound or something of that nature, but he can't get work, so he's got to turn to something. Can't put gas in his car, his Buick.
When he is trying to get out and Dennis Hopper's like, no, let's go back and have a drink. I was laughing.
I'm going to buy you a beer. I'm going to buy you a beer.
Yeah.
So funny.
Are you too good for me to buy you a beer?
Yeah.
That's when you know you're in trouble, is when someone doesn't let you not drink with them.
Right.
Now, I said I'd help you get your car.
Really, it's okay.
You don't want to drink with me? I'm not good enough to buy you a beer?
No, it's not that. I just...
Well, then what the fuck's your problem? Huh? Us Marines, we got to stick together.
No, but what was so great was like coming full circle on this block in particular. It's like, we got the like, he's not the wise guy that we have in Pick Up on South Street, and he's the earnest imaginings of the guy that we see in Detour, but he actually is that in this, where it's like, there were multiple times where he should have been dishonest to get himself somewhere, such as just not mentioning the leg thing could have gotten the job. Right when he gets to that gas station, he like, no one's around, and there's like
could
money just sitting there, and he's like, because he like opens up his wallet, and it's just it's like ripped in half, and like moths fly out of it. It's like it's like a cartoon. It's like
they did a great job at setting up how poor and just broke this guy is,
which is just like something in the 90s, like. You just would just raw dog life like that, like no cell phone, just drive across. Like, hey, does anyone have a job? I have $5 in my wallet.
Yeah. Well, and also like Pick Up on South Street was our New York movie. Detour starts in New York and moves out west, and then Red Rock West is all out west. In terms of
good point. Yeah.
Putting all these things together.
It's chronological too.
Yeah, and then sort of on top of that too, I think just in terms of connecting the films too, it's like we got the woman who appears to be the femme fatale and is not in Pick Up on South Street, and then the woman who is definitely the femme fatale in Detour.
Full fatale.
And in this one, you're supposed to believe that she's more of a Jean Peters, Laura Flynn Boyle, that is, and no, it turns out she's a Nan Savage by the end.
She is not Candy. She is, exactly.
Yeah,
she's great. She's very
she's
styled
more of a
like
Vera than Candy. Yeah,
she's styled like Joan Crawford to me. It's kind of like that black haircut and those eyebrows. It all seemed very Joan Crawford coded.
Yeah,
his eyebrows were pretty serious. Yeah, gave her a look, didn't it? She was fantastic in this movie. I did forget to mention Timothy Carhart too is also in this. I think he is a great character actor that shows up in different places. But he was the allergic violinist from Ghostbusters, if you remember. It's walking with Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, right.
But he's been in everything, man.
Oh my God, great! I completely forgot he was in Ghostbusters.
And I'm glad you're feeling better, sir.
Yeah. So who the hell is that?
He's just a friend.
But, well, I'll see you Thursday. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you, sir, and I'm glad you're feeling much better. You're still very pale, though.
He's the cop with the worst haircut in this film, but great actor.
It was a 93 haircut for sure.
Yeah.
Short with the bowl mushroom top kind of thing.
100%. Yeah. It's funny, those guys come on, those two cops, and you're like, oh, these pieces of shit. And towards the end, you're like, oh, I hope they figure it out. They're the only like good guys,
Wasn't that something that you weren't expecting? Was that they called JT Walsh immediately? Like he was suspicious of him right from the get-go. Like, who the hell are you? I'm a sheriff. Where'd you get elected? Just from coming into town like a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a very Western piece of that? Was like the new sheriff that's actually an outlaw from another city or another town and came in and took over. I love that.
Totally.
It's very Western noir, this film. And what was so great was like just how, as you're going along, the layers that get peeled back are so great. And they have this thing where it's like every 5 minutes, it seems like Nicolas Cage is going to get out from under this situation. Like, at the very beginning, JT Walsh like hires him to kill his wife because JT Walsh thinks it's this killer he's never met, coming from Texas.
Lyle from Dallas.
Lyle from Dallas. and then so he like takes the gun and he shows up, and Laura Flynn Boyle is like, okay, what the hell is this guy doing in my room? And he's like, hey, your husband paid me to kill you.
The wind in the house in that scene, the wind running through the house is such a haunting detail I'd never noticed before.
Oh, totally.
When he's like explaining and he's in the house waiting for her. Such a good, this movie's so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that whole time you're just thinking, oh shit, he's going to do it. What the hell's going to happen here? And then like she pays him off to just like leave, and he's like, even better. And like,
I like when he walks out with the 2 stacks of cash and puts them in the glove box.
And then
doubling his money.
And then he's like, okay, you're now leaving Red Rock. It's like, okay, perfect. And then like he accidentally hits that guy on the side of the road. Very Detour. And
so
like,
convenient for the plot too.
So
like, thank
convenient.
God.
So great.
Yeah.
But he didn't hit him. All right. Well, he did hit him. But,
he did. But like the hit didn't kill him. But it's funny because like all those series of events there, and then the way they kept it going like that is they kind of did this thing where they just kind of kept the ball in the air, like keeping him in Red Rock, and like every single time it was like he got out, okay, and then I got pulled back in, got out, got pulled back in.
He was a ping pong ball.
Yeah, it was, and that all of that was just done so well.
No exit. What is that French play? No exit, right? Where they're in purgatory, they can't get out. Yeah.
And that's how it felt. It felt like he was kind of in some sort of loop. And it felt like kind of a horror movie when they show you leaving and then coming and then leaving and then going into the same place. It kind of had that like, oh my God, can he even get out of here right now? Is he in some sort of vortex?
Yeah. A little video game coded. I just rewatched Back to the Future 2, which also feels video game code. Like all these like side quests, it's like, no, dude, don't do that.
Yeah.
But Nicolas Cage does do that. The reveal, I remember the first time I watched this, the reveal, and apparently this was J.T. Walsh's idea, to have the brim down and to look up and reveal that the bartender is also the sheriff. Yeah. That's when I was like, oh, this movie is like turning in on itself. Right. And then it does it like a couple more times.
No, exactly. And just like you were talking about with the other deputies or whatever, like they were very shitty to Nicolas Cage at the very beginning. They were very suspicious of him. And it felt like, oh shit, these guys are in J.T. Walsh's pocket. He is this like corrupt son of a bitch, and they're like his lieutenants or whatever.
That's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
Later on, we the other shoe drops on that one, and we see that they are like on to whatever his shit was. J.T. Walsh's, that is.
We already called the feds.
Yeah.
They're on their way.
Those two cops have one of my favorite lines of the movies. I think one of them finds the bundle of money and says, "You don't suppose this has anything to do with anything?" Very Coen Brothers. That feels like something out of like Fargo.
It felt like Blood Simple.
Blood
didn't
Simple.
It?
Yeah. In fact, in the very beginning, it very much felt like Blood Simple. It's like Nicolas Cage. He feels very much like the lead of Blood Simple. I'm forgetting the actor's name right now, but
John Getz.
John Getz. Yes, thank you. Nicolas Cage felt a lot like John Getz, where like both of them are wearing this like Canadian tuxedo. They're up against a shit kicker. It's funny because like the Emmett Walsh and the Dan Hedaya character in Blood Simple are basically rolled into one with the J.T. Walsh character.
Yeah.
Laura Flynn Boyle and Frances McDormand in Blood Simple. Yep. And then essentially Dennis Hopper is also the Emmett Walsh character because it is just kind of Blood Simple, basically. But like, they go to the back room of that bar. There's like, raining in the desert and like
the shine in the bar too. Yeah. The light coming in, the white light coming in. Love all that.
Oh yeah.
But it is very Blood Simple, but it is also very much its own thing. It's sort of Blood Simple in all the best ways, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, the Blood Simple, the idea of like the mixed up hit involving the reckless outside assassin who is also double crossing people on his own and kind of his own agent. And it also has a bit of, again, to bring up Postman Always Rings Twice. And also the white that she's first wearing is very Lana Turner coded, if that phrase has ever been said before. From Postman. But you have the black Joan Crawford hair, the white Lana Turner, and then it has a little bit of double indemnity of it, of like the lover triangle of like paying to kill off one and there being a surprise of her having her own ulterior motives. I did want to point out that there is a brown outfit she wears, just while we're talking sartorially, when she's like getting ready to go out with him, like when they're like, I think they go to the hotel together, she's wearing this like brown riding outfit. I believe that is what the kids call serving. I don't know. It is very fashionable. That is like something, if she wore that now.
What are they serving? You don't want to see the last word?
It's a look. It's an LEWK look that Lara Flynn Boyle is. It really is. It's quite something.
She's just having a brat summer. I don't know what any of these things mean.
Yeah, I don't know what any of that means, guys.
Listen, I'm too old for this
She's having a brat summer.
Yeah.
Too old for this shit.
I'm 5 minutes from retirement.
Does that tickle? Because it won't if I pull the trigger. What the hell are you doing on my truck?
Sorry, boss. I didn't mean to scare you.
Hey, did I look scared to you? What the hell are you doing on my truck?
I think that this movie was helped by a couple of really good Nick Cage moments. One, throwing Lara Flynn Boyle off of a train at the end just to finish up the movie with his one-liner. And then when she keeps getting in his ear about going to Mexico, we got to go to Mexico. I want to go to Mexico. Yeah. How's Mexico? It's hot. Stop asking. Right. By the time, like the third time she starts asking, it's finally, fuck Mexico. And he pulls full Nick Cage out on her.
There's supposed to be $500,000 in that safe. He must have moved it. We can find it, Michael. We can be together. We can go to Mexico.
Fuck Mexico!
Like, what's great though is that, like, this is still this time where he was giving a performance and not just doing that the whole time, but but he still peppers it. He you know, it's you hire Nick Cage to get Nick Cage, but it's not just all Nick Cage like freaking out. I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do.
Yeah. He does one while driving. He does like a fuck or something. Yeah.
Well, right when he didn't get the job, as he's driving away, he like punches the ceiling of or the roof of the car. And like he's like fuck, you know, and does a Nick Cage freak out. But it is a thing where it's like, you know, he was definitely still, like I said, at this time still giving an earnest performance type of thing and not just, can you just do that Nick Cage thing, like anything post Face Off or whatever is all like, you know, like turned up to 11 Nick Cage.
Then it becomes just like kind of a Nick Cage like movie caricature, as opposed to him being in it. But he did a lot of things that he does in other movies. There was like the whole I got to talk about that when they're trying to beat the train and Dennis Hopper has him driving, man, and Dennis Hopper getting all jammed up in the car and just screaming. And he pulls like the same jump that they pulled in Gone in 60 Seconds, but it was real.
But
they actually
crazy,
did it, and it looked awesome. I was like,
it was insane.
Why didn't they do that in Gone in 60 Seconds?
What a weird
Instead
moment.
of the CG car driving like 2 miles over a jump, you know?
And however they filmed that train is like actually moving. Like,
dude, that was real. I don't care what they had to set that up speed wise, maybe slow the train down or something.
Yeah.
But they had to get ahead of that thing and clear it. Like that is an intense scene, and Hopper just makes it so awesome, man.
That's what I was about to say. Actually, you're right. Like Hopper was doing latter day Nick Cage, like before Nick Cage. Like, you know, you can see what his inspiration was.
Oh, he seems to be having
fun. So Nick
fun.
Cage is actually doing early 90s Hopper. And now, I get it. Okay.
Hopper seems to be just like hamming it up and having fun. Doesn't at one point, like, Cage says he's going to kill him, and Hopper's like, oh, that hurt.
Yeah.
His little responses, you know. There's one actor in this, I hate to criticize, but after the cop is shot at the dispatch, there's some cop actor that sits down and says, hey, it's Ted. The old Duncan place is on fire. And he says it the exact same way, like 4 times, to the point where I thought it was like a piece of dialogue on a loop.
It might have been.
Jeff, hey, it's Ted. Listen, the old Duncan place is on fire and we need all the volunteers to go over there. Hey, it's Ted. Hey, listen, the old Duncan place is on fire. Yeah, we need all the volunteers to go over there. Okay. Hey, it's Ted. Listen, the old Duncan place is on fire. Yep. Yeah, we need some help. Yeah? I'll be right with you.
The actor that they got to let people know about the old Duncan place being on fire, it's like, dude, just mix it up a little bit, you know? I honestly thought, I heard it from the other room when I went to grab something. I'm like, I honestly thought they played the same piece of dialogue twice.
How good was that jailbreak, though?
Yeah. It's awesome.
The way they set it up, and Hopper's got the bottle of whiskey or wild turkey or whatever. He takes a little bit of it, then sets all the clothing or whatever that's in there on fire just to get the place started. But then he has to take one more sip, and he's like, woo! You know, he really like hams it up the whole... Did you guys get that one scene that they were digging for the money that J.T. Walsh had buried in the cemetery? Did that not look exactly like how Tarantino staged Kill Bill 2's burial scene when they bury the bride?
Right.
Like interesting. I hadn't considered that.
That whole setup, you know, like...
It looks very much like a set. That's the one thing about the graveyard scenes. I'm like, this looks so much like this is not outside at all.
It looks like that in Kill Bill as well. It's almost like too perfect.
Yeah, the look that Hopper gives after he's been like stabbed, it's like he's like shocked that this could even be happening to him. Also, the graveyard keeper. Again, this movie is like kind of funny. There's something funny about the graveyard keeper saying to his wife, better call the sheriff. It's
the way that they kind of paced it out too, it's a little bit long because they come out and hear like the gunshot, go through like an entire scene, they come back, we better call the sheriff. And it's like, that part got to me a little, but
The sheriff's the one out there dead, dude. Like, it's just great. It's very 90s. It's almost made for TV movie in those moments, but I mean that as a compliment. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's the charm of the 90s movies, I think. I think that's something that happened during those movies.
Totally.
John Hamm's character in Fargo, in the latest season of Fargo, if you guys have seen it, he plays a small-town sheriff that is elected due to some strange circumstances that he might be under his control, and he's a real asshole. So I'm wondering if they kind of pulled a lot of that those noir elements from this film for Fargo. If you've seen the latest season, it's outstanding, guys.
I need to see it. I loved the first couple seasons I saw.
As film noir fans, both of you, that show is right up your alleys for sure. It is just a series of noir.
Yeah, I saw like the first season, but and what's kind of cool is that apparently they do a totally different story each season.
It's anthological, but they connect them, which I think is fun. Yeah. Which obviously, I like anthology films. So.
Have you guys covered J.T. Walsh in many of your movies prior?
We have it. I'm really excited to get more J.T. Walsh going.
Breakdown is a good one.
So good.
Isn't he Blue Chips? He was the school executive.
I think Pleasantville is like what, as a kid, where I first clocked him. But gone too soon. Died in 98 in his 50s. Really, really sad.
Very sad, yeah. Way too soon. Few Good Men, yeah. Man.
Such a good shitheel. Also, this and Breakdown. Breakdown would make a great double feature with Red Rock West.
Yeah, totally. That's a good one.
The one last thing I want to shout out is Lara Flynn Boyle standing up as soon as she's been thrown off the train. The heat of the moment, like, gun at Nick Cage. Trying to beg with him for a way to be an accomplice. Thrown off the train, realizes she's lost the money. Then the sirens pull up, and she's her little thing of shit.
Yeah.
It's she forgot. Oh, wait a minute, I'm actually in trouble with the law. It's such it's so good.
She's
so
kind of playing a game the whole time, right? Like she's just finally found out that the game was ending, and because she was taking that for a ride. J.T. Walsh and her were at each other's throats from a distance that whole time. She was kind of winning, I'd say, but he still had her number, especially when you get Lyle from Dallas involved.
She was
about to go
him.
down.
Yeah, she was going to frame him, and then she pulled the sweet moves in that bar called Country Girl. And Nick Cage is, like we said, just yes-anding everything. It's like, oh, she's hitting on me. I got to say yes.
I want another shot.
All right, whiskey. Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not going to just do one drink. Let's be honest here.
They're like, hey, let's get out of here. No,
just
one. Let's get another drink.
He's like, you want to get back? You want to get out of here? Yeah. You want to stick around?
She actually pours drinks quite often, and she has that in common with Ann Savage, who also at one point is like, I got to get a bottle and do some shopping. They both just love the booze. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and in this one it was strange because I was like, okay, damn, they're really playing up her alcoholism. I wonder where that's going. And it didn't that one actually didn't really pay off anywhere, or it wasn't like something where it's like, oh no, I don't know, she needs that last desperate drink or something, because what she was actually addicted to was that money they had, and then as Nicolas Cage throws it off the train and does the sort of the killing ending. She's like, no, I thought she was going to dive after it or something, but instead we got him kicking her ass off the train.
He becomes, this is why I think he's the most quote unquote interesting protagonist of the three, because he actually makes a choice at the end.
He does have money though. He keeps some. He only has 1,500 space bucks for lunch.
He keeps it.
Yeah.
He becomes the agent of choice. He's such drifting through things, kind of saying yes and kind of not really putting up a fight, but he finally takes a stance at the end, and that's, I think, story-wise, his ticket out of Red Rock.
As a drifter, though, wouldn't that be the best situation for you? Okay, I didn't get the job at the mining plant or whatever the first one was, right? The construction yard, whatever it was. I didn't get that job. So all of a sudden I went on this huge adventure. I got to get with Lara Flynn Boyle. I met J.T. Walsh. I met a weird dude in Dwight Yoakam, blah, blah, blah. But you did all this stuff, and he ends up with a little bit more money in his pocket at the end.
Totally.
Actually, some more money in his pocket. He had hardly any, $5 at the beginning, right? Isn't that how he starts the movie, 5?
It's also good that he doesn't steal too much, because then the sequential numbers might become a problem.
Ooh. If you want to get into it, yeah. And they were talking about this $2 million they could split between the two of them, maybe in 1993. But if I'm looking to take out $80,000 a year in my retirement, I'm going to need at least $2.7 million, according to my financial advisor. Fuck out of here.
You should go to your financial advisor and say, excuse me, have you seen John Dahl's Red Rock West?
Do you see me as some sort of down on my luck noir protagonist? I might be able to jump into some crime and really tumbleweed myself through all of it all.
Yeah, have you seen this very obscure movie from the 1990s that is not available on streaming anywhere?
Where did you find this?
I bought the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray. So
nice.
It looked beautiful.
Yeah,
great.
It looks really great.
It felt like a modern film. Like my wife saw me watching it. She asked if it was like more of a 2000s film. I'm like, no, it's like a 30-year-old movie.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
yeah.
This movie, it was not a huge hit when it came out, but it did really well in indie cinemas. In fact, one shout out local Bay Area stuff. The Roxy Cinema in San Francisco, one of America's oldest, if not America's oldest, longest running theater. They really championed this and kept it running and kind of word of mouth. It ended up being noticed by Ebert. I think it made some year-end list of his. Or
Siskel and Ebert loved it. They loved this movie.
Yeah. This movie, it really was indie rep cinemas like Roxy Cinema that kept this place alive, and a couple in New York too. So
this was one of my favorites we've ever talked about, guys.
Same, dude. Same. I was hoping you'd like this. It's funny, Brian, as I watched this, I was like, this feels like one Brian's really going to like. Based on like the stuff we talked about before. So
this is my era for sure. This is when I was actually understanding movies and able to actually, watch them and get them. But this is right in there, and I can't believe I haven't seen this yet. This is one that's going to be on my top 10 list, always rewatching every year for sure.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. You got to see Last Seduction now. And I'm even looking, he has one with Val Kilmer called Coppola liked and convinced Cage to do this film, Kill Me Again, because he was such a fan of Kill Me Again. So now I have to watch that.
Which also has, what's his name in it too, right? Michael Madsen?
Joanne Whaley. Yeah, it's got some interesting actors here.
Looks like he's really doing a lot of the like TV stuff now, but he's working. Good.
Hey, he's working for me. Again, Red Rock West, guys, it was such a pleasure to rewatch this and have a reason to. I even showed it to my girlfriend. Jordan really dug it. Just solid block of films of Wronged Man trilogy.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining again. You guys want to do your ratings? Your 1, 2, 3 faves?
Oh, man. I think it's gotta be... Oh, this is so hard.
I know.
So I love Detour so much. But rewatching this, I think it's Pickup, Red Rock, and then Detour. Like, before we started, I think it would have been Detour first, but Pickup is so much better than I remember, and Red Rock is just revisiting any time and is going to put it up there. So I'm going to go with Sam Fuller number 1, John Dahl 2, and then Edward G. Ulmer, whose name I don't think we said the whole time.
We didn't.
Austrian-Hungarian, also directed The Black Cat, tons of films, interesting director. I think I'll do Detour 3.
Yeah, and speaking of that, the Ulmer thing, he came out of the German UFA studios and all that kind of stuff. So he was, one of these German expats that came over and sort of essentially created film noir, bringing that, German expressionism,
Fritz Lang,
exactly,
one of these
Fritz
guys.
Lang, all that kind of stuff. But he wasn't. He would do all kinds of genres. Like horror movies, like you said, and westerns and all kinds of stuff.
Bluebeard, he did a couple for this. So it's Pickup, Red Rock West, and Detour. That's I think my ranking on this one.
What about you, Lyle from Dallas?
Lyle from Dallas. We'll probably go with Red Rock as number 1.
Oh, I am shocked.
Yeah.
Blown away.
I was too when I saw this one. I was really pleasantly surprised. Yeah. And then I don't know. It's really tough because I really love the other two movies, but I think if I had to pick one, it would go Detour number 2, Pickup number 3.
Nice.
I mean, they were all fucking awesome. So it's
I know
really,
I picked number
margins.
1 for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Red Rock, Pickup, Detour, 1 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all did something a little different. Yeah.
A little different. Yeah, that's great. No, you couldn't really rate these any other way, but just your 3 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. No, it was quite a good block on this one. Our summer noirs almost never disappoint, and these ones for sure are up there.
No, we'll have to come up with a Christmas one. We'll have to come up with another seasonal one here coming up soon, so we don't have to wait for another summer, because I don't know if I could wait another year.
If you guys want to do Mexican noir, I'm watching a lot of golden age of Mexican cinema.
Awesome.
Interesting.
The other thing I didn't really realize is Red Rock West also kind of has a dream feel of where when you're in a dream, you're put upon in all these situations.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not the person to do this. I'm not supposed to be taking this test today. Just another thread. Guys, great films, great conversation, so fun chatting.
Thanks for joining. We really appreciate you coming in. Did you want to plug your stuff?
Sure. I'm at OnlyFilmNoir on Instagram, and a lot of my writing these days is at the Hard Times. So look up Alex Vlahov, and you can see my articles there for the Hard Times.
Hell yeah.
Right on.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Alex. It was always a pleasure. You're kind of becoming the unofficial third mic around here. And
hell yeah.
It's
Love being the ringer.
It's a blast.
Dude,
yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Brian. It's so fun as always. Thank you for inviting me back. It's always really fun chatting with you guys.
Thank you. And thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on any podcast platform and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Adios, Red Rock.
Oh, you had to do it. Yeah, that's the perfect ending.
You son of a bitch!
Adios, Red Rock.